Thank you for joining us on our journey here to preserve the history of mixed martial arts. When I wanted to take on this project, I needed help. I brought in one of my favorite matchmakers, Miguel Iturrate, and the MMA detective, Mike Davis. So to do this, we've been able to preserve history. Welcome and enjoy.
Welcome back to the Lights Out Podcast. My name is Mike Davis. I am your host, and along with me, as a guest this time, none other than Miguel Iturrate. Miguel, we're talking ADCC history, which, I think at this point, this is your first year in 1999. We're going to look at Mark Kerr and his splash into the ADCC brand. You know, he obviously made a name for himself. He's in the Hall of Fame. And we kind of want to talk to you about how he got there and your experiences with him.
Terrific. Yeah. 1999 was the first year I went to the tournament. I was, after the first year, they decided that they really did need more reporters and more people, getting information about the event out there. And I was invited as a reporter. I went with a camera and took pictures. And from there, noticed that the event needed a little help with the organization, got involved, thankfully, with that for many years until 2007. But initially I went, with the idea of just reporting on the event. That's what they wanted, more information going out, because from the first year in 1998, they had a field of world-class competitors and filled in with local competitors. There were a lot of Arabic fighters and Muslim fighters that really are not going to be on the world level in 1998, but they were trying, they were learning the competition, learning jiu-jitsu, and they got put in there. But in 99, the field was stacked.
Okay, right. So the learning curve was steep. It was not only stacked. Who are you rooming with when you're there?
I got to room with Travis Fulton.
You think I may have known that answer? Sorry. So now we're going to move on. You still feel a little dirty. So Mark Kerr arrives, obviously invited. Why not Mark Coleman, Mark Schultz? Why was Kerr the chosen one in this instance?
This is one of those things that, Kerr was smart, and Kerr was a guy that was very much presenting himself a certain way there. And I'll tell you what I think it was, is that Mark Coleman, already UFC champion, Mark would have gone if they had paid him an appearance fee. He wasn't going to do it for free. And you do have to finish in the top 4 to get money officially. He probably would have shown up and gotten sponsorships, but a lot of that sounds risky to a fighter who's already been around the world like Mark Coleman and, seen other people getting ripped off and stuff like that. And also he's got his reputation to think of. There is the consideration that he's never competed in that format before. So I think above all things, if you had given Coleman 20 grand to show up, he would have been there. Okay. Kerr took that risk and went without that initial appearance fee, on the up and up. Maybe he had a sponsor already, but he went there when without an official appearance fee the first time.
So why not Mark Schultz?
Probably the same thing. They had different conduits. I actually helped them speak to the Coleman camp at that time as an American representative. I have no contact with them if they had contacted Schultz or anything like that. So if they did, I would imagine it's the same thing. Mark, with his Olympic pedigree, was probably, doing all that for free, basically, all that pedigree. He did his MMA fight, but I think he was also a hitman looking. He wasn't going to do it for free either. That's just my opinion. With Coleman,
he may have been a brown belt around this time. Mark Schultz.
He also would have been in a different weight division, not a heavyweight. And that's also a consideration. I don't know if those divisions were easier for Abu Dhabi to fill or what the deal was. I don't know the status of Schultz, but I can tell you that Kerr, Kerr saw it as, why should I hide? What is there to hide? I'm going to go come and try it. And he got a lot of mileage out of that for being open-minded. Meanwhile, now I look back at it and I think that the fact that it wasn't striking related, I think that took the edge off of it for Mark. I think it was much more something he didn't have to worry about, whereas Coleman liked the striking and stuff like
Preferred
that.
him. Yeah.
I think Kerr said that takes away an element of difficulty in this, and I'm the specimen or the specimen is he's known as the smashing machine, but his original nickname was the specimen, and was he? Yeah. Not many people were going to be able to move that guy when he didn't want to be moved, and he knew that.
Well, let's talk about February 21st, February 24th, 1999. That's the first day of the tournament, and I believe it's held in is it the jumping arena of the horse? The horse. Yeah, I don't want to call it a barn, but
yeah, trust me, it's not a barn. It's a pavilion. I remember there's a James Bond movie, A View to a Kill, for fans of my age or whatever, where there's exotic horses being shown in a big pavilion in England and things like that. This is modeled after that type of building. It's an open air building, so there's no windows. There's air comes in. It's roofed, but there's no window, so there's open air. You're in the room temperature and stuff like that. There's seating on one side for the VIPs, and then seating on the other side for regular seating. And then in the middle is that big area where it's big enough, you can run a horse. The horse can get up to maybe not full speed, but he can show himself off. He can jump over things, and it's a big wide open area where the three mats fit. And that's where the fight.
Fair enough. So his first opponent is Carlos Barreto. Now, the rumor was that Carlos requested this bout.
Yeah, I think you're looking at Carlson Gracie team's, premier heavyweight. I think he was older already. I think we got an old,
at that time.
Yeah, I think he was just a guy that if he had been a few years younger, 10 years younger, he might have impacted the MMA and the fight world, on a world stage. I think his best moments occurred on the Brazilian stage, when that was all that there was available. You know what I mean? So he came out, he wanted Kerr. I think the idea of defeating Kerr to him meant that, he would get all the credit. He would get a lot of credit for doing the impossible kind of thing. And he wanted that challenge. That's definitely the kind of mindset that Barreto had. It didn't work out for him, but he tried, and the fact is Kerr stalled. He knew what he was doing.
Let's get into that. Like Mark Kerr showed an incredible amount of athleticism, but it was at a very slow pace. You mentioned the word stalled. Jeff Monson obviously uses, that type of, that type of technique in regards to winning matches. 1998 ADCC champion. Kerr came in with that. Like that was his game plan from the beginning. Did that surprise you?
No, but I remember noticing it during the competition. He did a few things. First, he would refuse to go to the ground. He could stand, specifically in the Barreto match, you could see him do it. He'll stand with his hands on his knees, and Barreto is sitting in front of him with his hand on his head. Now, in that position, they're touching each other, so it's not who's stalling. If Barreto starts crabbing towards him, he can take one step back, and Barreto has to reset. He didn't have to take the 2, 3, 4 steps back that become really dangerous in Abu Dhabi for points. So he was able to stall. And then when he got down on the ground, you can actually see it on the old tapes that Kerr did a few things that I'm sure he did in his rest. I'm sure it comes from his wrestling mind games. He gets into the guard. Now he's in their world, and he would stop. The Brazilian would normally stop with him, watch him. Hey, what happened? What's wrong? And he would act like he's got something in his mouth or something in his eye. He'd be like, and the Brazilian would give him the courtesy of letting him take care of that. And he would stall out, a few good 10 seconds, 15 seconds, whatever he's doing there, work on that. And then he'd tap the guy and be like, okay, let's go again. But he was controlling the whole thing. That's what Kerr's game was, to control the whole thing. So the mind game there becomes part of the actual physical contact. You got to give him credit for it, but it didn't make for that pleasing a match.
Okay. So he wins a decision against Barreto, and in the second round, he gets future world champion Josh Barnett, a young, hungry Josh Barnett.
Yep, this is Josh as the heavyweight on Matt Hume's team. This is the first time you see him on any type of international competition. You know, he's basically a chubby kid at this point, but you can already see very game. I remember from the Hallman interview, we did an interview with his teammate Dennis Hallman, who was also at this 99 competition. And Hallman, who had a great career, 50 fights, you know, beat Matt Hughes twice. Hallman kind of waxes reminiscent and says, Josh was the best of us. I think I was second best. So Josh clearly had it as well. And when he got Kerr in the second round, he went at Kerr. He wanted to do what Barreto did. Rather not what Barreto did, but what Barreto wanted, which is to defeat Kerr. He just couldn't. He got thrown, and that throw was in the running for the throw of the year. So, you know, Kerr got off a big throw where he lifted Barnett up, you know, off the ground and tossed him. And, you know, that was a very notable moment for Kerr and, you know, not on the stalling end here.
Right. So obviously Matt Hume brings anybody that he brings to Abu Dhabi is going to have their A game and a fantastic strategy. Josh Barnett loses by Kimura at about the 10-minute mark. And the third bout is Ricardo Moraes. Now, Ricardo Moraes, Henzo guy, in December of 99, he's in the Pride Grand Prix. And in 2003, he's in the documentary, The Smashing Machine. So it was kind of our first introduction into a guy known as the Monster in that documentary, you know, that world-class documentary, The Smashing Machine.
Well, I knew him from the year before, and props to Toby Amata for taking him the whole length of the absolute match they had. And based on that, I could surmise, I think, that Kerr was going to be too much of an athlete. Like, they could both look good, you know, and Moraes was a monster. He was huge and stuff, but he was just going to be slow. And I think that's what it turned out. There are different levels of athlete, and Kerr was on that top shelf, and the other guy was a guy that had spent his life in the gym working on it and physically looked great, but like the basic original tools he didn't have. And Kerr, you know, Kerr was too much for him.
Well, on the other side of the bracket, you've got Sean Alvarez, who made his way to the finals by beating Garth Taylor, black belt under Claudio Franca, Rico Rodriguez, decision, and sumo wrestler Mark Robinson, who, Miguel, in the future, we absolutely have to do a little segment on Mark Robinson. Maybe we can track him down, have him on, because what he did as a sumo wrestler and a catch wrestler in ADCC is pretty stunning, pretty incredible stuff.
Especially out of South Africa, you know, and let me tell you, there's nothing like 99. 2000 was really the year that was probably the highest glossy name lineup. You know, the next year they would outdo this year, 99. But even then, you're sitting in a room with 100 world level fighters, and very few of them stand out just on look and physique. And just like, you're like, whoa, look at that guy. Like, there are a few of them, right? Kerr would be one, and Mark Robinson would absolutely be another one. Mark Robinson, a monster.
So Sean Alvarez, a 3-time runner-up, another Henzo student. So Henzo is kind of loading the brackets up and keeping his people away from each other. Not a real exciting match in the finals either for Mark Kerr.
Yeah, you know, Alvarez, you know, he was a Henzo student, but I almost remember him as a part-time fighter. Like, he didn't, like, make a UFC run. He fought some MMA, had a bad showing against Oleg Taktarov, and then really didn't keep doing it. And in Abu Dhabi, he made several appearances, and like you mentioned, it proved hard for him to break through. He was also another guy, a poster boy type of looking guy, but, you know, the look backed up with the actual real athleticism. You know, Mark Kerr, there was another guy in that competition, a wrestler from the States, Mike Van Arsdale. Those guys were the cream of the crop athletes I saw there. Mark Robinson was a different type of athlete, stocky monster guy. Sean Alvarez was a poster boy, but didn't back it up in my book to that level. So, you know, a solid competitor, but not the true top shelf guys.
And let's talk about this. Mark Kerr wins the ADCC, and he's not a jiu-jitsu guy. So you got a Brazilian jiu-jitsu tournament, in the quarterfinals. On the other side, you got Mark Robinson, who's a sumo wrestler, also a catch wrestler, future ADCC champion. At the heavyweight division, anything over about 205 is the only place you'll see somebody that's not a jiu-jitsu person winning the tournament.
One exception.
Go ahead.
Kareem Barkley is the one
Kareem
exception.
Barkley. Was he at 205 or 85? Where's he at?
I think he did this one in the 84, 85, that weight class when he won the Abu Dhabi. And but yeah,
Barkley
he was also
savage.
He was also a special athlete as well, I think that's what it takes. And I do think you're right. I think the smaller you get, the less your chances are in Abu Dhabi, unless you're Brazilian in these early years.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So Mark Kerr, how about weigh-ins? Anything like in particular that stood out? Was he jonesing? Did you see signs of addiction?
Remember, he was at the top of his game at this point. He was undefeated in MMA. He had won 2 UFC tournaments, 2 4-man tournaments in the UFC. He faced nobody more difficult than Dan Bobish in there. So basically, they were a walk in the park for him. Went to Pride, was undefeated, is coming off the Hugo Darte win. So he hasn't been challenged yet. Nobody's really challenged him in MMA. And now he decides to come to Abu Dhabi and does well in Abu Dhabi. When
Doesn't
he gets
do the absolute.
Yes, that's one of the caveats. When he gets there, there is the rumors that he disappeared and went off to a clinic to get prescriptions filled. Now, I don't know that for a fact, but, in retrospect, it becomes a little more clear, but you did hear those rumors. You also did hear a rumor that he was off with one of the sponsors on a big shopping spree and stuff. And, that could also be why he didn't do the absolute, is because he already may have made a substantial amount of money on sponsorships and things like that, maybe made it less interesting to him. He also, I think, didn't catch on that it meant that the winner had the super fight the next year and all the bells and whistles that went with it. So I think he just left his tournament. And like Renzo Gracie the year before, didn't do the absolute. The absolute was won by Roberto Traven, who went on to fight Sperry in a super fight. Kerr would get Sperry the next year after that, So he caught on, but at the end here, you had the rumors with the clinic. At the weigh-ins, we were forced to wait 3 hours before the VIP showed up. They were very disorganized, and they
wait. So they had to wait for the VIPs to watch them weigh in, or were these the people organizing the weigh-ins?
Yeah, keep in mind, I think that's the thing is that the VIPs were also the guys who knew the fighters and things like that. Everybody else was there with a checklist and things. They didn't know what to do. They were waiting for orders, is a lot of what goes on there. And they were late. And Kerr specifically was one of the guys that was complaining, walking around. He didn't even have to weigh in. Other guys were cutting weight and forced to wait, But he was upset over the weight. And it was torturous, the cement floor, the feet hurt. And you're coming off the long trip and things like that. And Kerr, he looked like he had a long trip, So he was getting up for the trip, but he was weighing in and it was a little surly at that point. But things would get better for him in a hurry.
That's excellent, Miguel. Thank you so much. We appreciate that. This is going to be the first installment of our little mini series on Mark Kerr. We'll probably end up doing 2 or 3 more. So. Greatly appreciate it, ladies and gentlemen at home. Please like, share, subscribe. If you like this content, you do that, we'll keep giving you more. Miguel, thank you.
Check out the full interview on iTunes, Spotify, and all major podcast platforms.